Welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole Quilts. I'm Tessa, and today we are going to make Christmas stockings. It's that time of year, and it's always nice to have personal Christmas stockings. Now I just want to show you a few of the stockings and what you can do. They're all made with the same pattern. It's just in how you decide to decorate them or what fabric you use. So the first one is one like this, and I just used lettering that I found out on the internet, printed it off, made my applique, and sewed it down with some pretty metallic thread, and then I used eyelet for the cuff, and then put on Swarovski crystals. Probably said that wrong. Anyway, before I had an embroidery machine, this is how I made my stockings. Then, after I got my embroidery machine, I started putting actual names on them, and this is one that I made for my granddaughter Alora, and she loves the movie Frozen, and so she has that for her stocking. And then my grandson James chose these little snowmen with baby deer, and then you can see that his name is on there, and then I went ahead and attached a snowflake. But you can do whatever you want to do to personalize it for your family and friends. So there is no real written pattern for making these Christmas stockings. When I decided I wanted to make my family and friends personalized Christmas stockings, what I did was I took a Christmas stocking I already had, and I simply I put it onto a piece of paper and I traced around the outside of it, and then I added a 1/4 inch to all the sides. That way I had a seam allowance, and that is how I came up with my pattern, which is just this, which is just a piece of freezer paper. And as you can see, this is the one I used to make this stocking. So the cuff, then, all I did was measure the top of my stocking, and then I went ahead and I added an extra 1/4 inch to it. Well, I doubled it, so if it's 7 inches, then you're going to have 14, and you're going to add a 1/4, so it'd be 14 1/4. That extra 1/4 is for the seam allowance you're going to have. You're only going to have it on one side because you're going to double it, fold it in half, and I'll show you how that's all going to work here in a little bit, but that is the pattern. There's nothing in writing. You can see I've used mine a lot. I've cut holes all the way around the edges, and then I have made my notes on where I need to put my embroidery on it when I'm putting names on it. So let's get started. We're going to go ahead and make one today, and all you need for this is some fusible batting for the inside of it, an outside fabric, which I have chosen this Fun Christmas, and because it's directional, I need at least a 1/2 yard so that it'll be facing the same way on both sides. And then you need something to line the stocking with, and I just picked out some white that I had in my stash to do that. Matching thread, and then for the little loop that goes on it to hang it by, I actually just have some of this gross grain ribbon that I got with a kit I got, and I'm just going to untie it, press it a little bit, and then I will just cut the amount needed to make the little loop. So when I cut this out, I personally like to cut all my layers at the same time. So what I've done is I have put 2 layers of the fusible fleece down, and then I have my lining fabric, and then I have my outside fabric. And once again, remember, make sure that you have it going the same way, and make sure it's either wrong sides together or right sides together. Either way, just so long as they're not both going the same way, like right side to wrong side, because otherwise you will get two of the exact same piece, and that will be very frustrating. So just making sure everything is smoothed out. I feel a bump, oh, that's just an infusible. And I just lay my pattern on there, and then I am just going to go ahead and start pinning it. Now I usually cut this out with a pair of scissors, but if you have a small rotary cutter and you know, and if that works better for you, you can go ahead and use that. I don't think there's any right or wrong way. It's just what you have available for your use. Once we're all pinned down, we're just going to cut through all these layers. Right, so our stocking is cut out, and we're just going to go ahead and unpin that. And set our pattern aside. And then you can see we have a front and back of the stocking. We have a front and back of the lining. And we have a front and back of the fusible interface. Now with the fabric left over, this piece I'm just going to store for a future project. But this piece, which is what we're going to make the cuff of, that was also my lining, we're going to go ahead and cut that and get it ready to go. So my lining needs to be, or my cuff I should say, got the wrong word there, needs to be 15 1/4 by 9 1/2. So let's go ahead and we're going to cut our 9 1/2. And actually, we're going to have to cut it twice because that was right on our fold. And we'll get rid of the extra part. Straighten this up a bit. All right, and this part will be our cuff, and that is all we need to make our stocking. So let's go ahead and start assembling it, and we're going to do that by first sewing the lining together. So make sure you have right sides together on your lining. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. The fabric I have is kind of hard to tell, but it is brighter on one side than the other. And when we do this, we're going to sew a 1/4 inch, and we're going to start here, and we're going to go all the way around, and we're going to stop about right here, and then we're going to start here, and we're going to go all the way around here and finish it. We're going to leave this end open, and we're going to leave a section of it open at the bottom, and that section at the bottom is left open because we're going to need to turn the stocking inside out at some point so that the good side is out. So I'm going to go ahead and set up my machine, and we'll get going with this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start sewing this, and as you can see, I'm starting at the top. I have a machine that is set at a 1/4 inch. If you don't have a 1/4 inch foot, just go ahead and figure out here on your machine where the 1/4 inch is and start there. So because we're going to have a lot of stress up on this, I want to do a little bit of stabilizing it, a little forward back, just to make sure that it holds tight there when I go to add all the pieces together, because there's going to be a lot of bulk right there. So we're just going to sew around this. And I just put some pins in because I wanted to stabilize it. I didn't want it shifting while I was sewing. Okay, we're going to get right about here, and we're going to go back and forth just a little bit to finish it off so it doesn't unravel when we go to push everything through. We're going to skip, we're going to leave a break there and jump back in over here. Do a little back stitch. So our lining is sewn, but now in order to make it so our curves come out really nice, we need to go along and we need to clip it. So anywhere it's curved outwards, we need to just put some clips. And you want to clip about every 1/4 of an inch. Go as close to the seam line, but don't cut the seam line. And this will just help ease it so that when you put the stocking together, that the heel is nice and round and not got points on it. And then on the inside curves, you're going to cut little triangles out. And that is the same reason, so we have some room for it to turn there. And just make tiny little ones, and they should go close to the seam line, but don't cut the seam line. This is now adhered to the front part of the stocking, as you can see, and I have a right and a left basically. So we're just going to put those two together like so, and we're going to pin around them, and then we're going to go ahead and sew a 1/4 inch around everything right back up to the top. Make sure you tack it by back stitching at the top here and here, because when we turn it, that's going to be a lot of pressure on it and you don't want it to start to come apart. So I have the front sides of the stocking sewn together, as you can see. Fusible fleece on the outside, pretty fabric on the inside, and just like the inner lining, we need to go ahead and we need to clip the inside and outside curves so that this turns and you get a nice smooth finish to it. You can see that I did go ahead and I sewed right along here. I sewed that shut on the outside piece, unlike the opening we left on the lining piece. So I'm just going to do that, and then we will create the cuff. So here's our stocking. It's all sewn, well, the exterior of it I should say. It's all sewn and turned, and you can see that the curves are nice because they're all clipped. They're nice and round. So now we have the outside of the stocking done, we have the lining of it done, and now it's time to do the cuff for it. So if you remember from earlier, we cut the cuff, and now we're going to go ahead and we're going to fold it in half and press that, and then we're going to fold it in half again so that we're in quarters, and then I'm going to go ahead and press that, because what I'm trying to do is find the quarter where I'm going to go ahead and embroider my name, if that's what you want to do. And if you don't want to embroider it on there, that's great. You can do whatever you want. I should have said earlier that if you want to put like an applique on, the best time to do that would be before you sew these pieces together. You know, when they're still just individuals, go ahead, put your applique on there and then sew this together. Otherwise it makes it, it's pretty much impossible unless you're going to put it down by hand, and that would be kind of hard, but it could be done. So I'm going to go ahead and press this and go ahead and put the name on it, and then I will show you how that looks. Alright, I finished embroidering my name on this because this stocking is going to be for me. And as you can see, this was our original piece, and on mine it was 15 1/4 by 9 1/2, and I pressed it in two and pressed it in two like this to get the section where my name would go on the cuff. And now we're just going to take this and we're going to open it up, and then we're going to go the long way, and we are going to sew right along here. So I'm just going to put some pins in there to hold it. And we're going to sew a 1/4 inch. And that will be our cuff. Just like this. And then we'll start assembling the stocking. Alright, here's the cuff. And basically, after I sewed that, I just went ahead and pressed it. And then I folded it back in half the long way, and then I gave it a good pressing the short way. So we're ready to assemble our stocking now, and we're going to start by taking the outside and putting it onto the stocking like so. And we're going to line the seams up, the back seams, all together. So the stocking with the cuff, and then I like to go ahead and just go ahead and start pinning this. We are going to add the lining. If you want, you can go ahead at this point and baste the cuff on to the front. I like to shortcut, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin this on, and then I'm going to put the lining over it, and then I'm going to sew all three at once. So let me just get this pinned around here. Like so. Like this. And now we are going to go ahead and we're going to take our lining, which is turned inside out, because we want our right sides together. And we're going to go ahead and stick our stocking inside of the lining, just like so. And once again, we are going to line up our seams. This is what it should look like right before you sew it. I've got the cuff and the outside of the stocking and the inside of the stocking, all like a big sandwich here. And we're just going to sew a 1/4 inch all along this. I'm going to turn it so that the lining is on the inside and our pretty fabric is on the outside. To make this easier, I'm going to go ahead and remove my table and just set it off to the side here, because I want to be able to fit my stocking over it like this. It'll make it sewing much easier that way. And I'm just going to drop it at my feet, and I'm set at a 1/4 inch. We're going to tack it a little bit so it doesn't come loose. And we're just going to follow it on around. So you remember that hole we left earlier in the lining? We're just going to go ahead and start pulling our stocking out through that. Like so. And this is why we wanted to tack the edges of that, so that when we turned it, we wouldn't rip the seam line wide open. So we need to close up the opening we had that we left there for when we were going to turn it. And you can do that one of two ways. You can either just run a line through with your sewing machine, just quickly stitch down there about 1/8 of an inch in right there, or you can whip stitch it with a needle and thread, whichever you prefer. I'm just going to quickly take my sewing machine and sew that little baby shut. Alright, this is all closed up. You can see nothing fancy, just a quick stitch across it. And now we're going to go ahead and tuck this inside the stocking. Like so. And then I like to go ahead after I get to this point and put a line of stitching right here at the top just to hold the lining on the inside. And at this point you could go ahead and add any other embellishments you wanted. If you want some crystals, if you want to add, I don't know, anything you want to it at this point. So here's where we're at so far. Let me just finish putting this. We'll give it all a good press and we'll put the little hanger on and we'll be done. So the body of the stocking is together. I just finished sewing along at the top. That'll just help hold the inside or the lining of it in a little better. And now I need to put a hanger on it. And what I'm just using is some ribbon that came around a kit that I had got. And I just saved it, little gross grain ribbon. And I'm just kind of estimate, how big I want my loop. And then I'm just going to cut like so. Just line it up, give it a little cut like this. And I'm just going to attach it right here to the inside of it, and I'm just going to run a straight stitch across there. That's just a couple of times back and forth to hold it. And let me do that quick and I will show you the end product. So here's our finished product, and if you enjoyed making a stocking with me today, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Have a happy holiday!